You are listening to a Pleasure podcast. For more from our Sex Podcast Collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Welcome back to Private Parts Unknown, a podcast about love and sexuality around the world. I'm Courtney Kocak, and privates, it's hot, it's summer, we're feeling sweaty, we're feeling slutty, we're in the middle of hot pod summer. So I thought the perfect midsummer episode would be all about casual sex. And I have the perfect guest to help us be ethical about it.
Hi, my name is Allison Moon. I'm a sex educator and author of Girl Sex 101 and Getting It, a guide to hot, healthy hookups and shame-free sex.
Allison was on the podcast back in April, sharing her expert advice on girl sex and pleasing vulva owners. And now she is back on the podcast giving us guidance on slutting it up without being an asshole. Because I think we can agree, being a slut is great, but being an asshole isn't. Okay, so Getting It, about casual sex, set up the kind of how and what of this book.
So Getting It was a book that I wrote because I wanted everybody to access the relationship and the sexuality tips that I had in Girl Sex 101, regardless of orientation or gender identity. So again, Girl Sex 101 is for queer women, about queer women. And plenty of straight men access the book too because they want to learn how to have sex like lesbian, which is great in my book.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, exactly. But Getting It, I found that when I would teach lectures at universities and colleges, a lot of my students, they were fine with the technique. There's so much information out there. There's, porn, obviously, for better and for worse, but also just there's lots of erotic material that teaches you technique. And I think that's great. A lot of my young students were hoping for more relationship stuff. They were having a hard time navigating being at university and wanting to hook up, but not wanting to be a jerk about it, or how to navigate open relationships or friends with benefits or any of these other kinds of ways in which kind of modern relationships form now. And so I wrote this book as a kind of an etiquette guide to how to navigate being a person who has casual sex in this world without being a jerk. And that comes from understanding yourself and eradicating shame in your own life, not shaming other people for their sexual adventures and orientations, and how to have just difficult conversations around what you want from your sex life and how to find people who are down for that. So it's a lot more based on kind of the first steps into being maybe an ethical slut.
Yeah. Okay. So if you are a new ethical slut or trying to be, what are some things to keep in mind as you're getting out there and trying not to be a dick about it?
Sure.
Non-gendered dick.
Non-gendered dick, exactly. I think the first step is to get to know yourself really well and to get to know what you want from your sex life. And again, there are so many kind of assumptions in our society that kind of tell you who to be without you having a chance to actually explore it for yourself. So I have a bunch of questions at the very beginning of the book of what do you want from casual sex? Is it that you want a community of sluts that have sex parties together? Is it that you just want to explore things that you might be interested in a way that doesn't feel like you're locked in for life, right? Is it that you just want to build a sexual history so that when you meet, your one, if you have a one, you feel sexually expressed and you know who you are so that you can feel like you can go into a relationship with somebody fully? There are a million different ways for why you might want to engage in non-relationship based or non-monogamous sex, and really just getting super clear on what you want so that you can be more deliberate about what you ask for from other people, because it makes it so much easier to have conversations with people about what you want when you know it, right? We've all been in those situations of people trying to get information from somebody and they just don't know. And so it's I don't know how to begin a negotiation with you because I don't know what you want from me. So getting really clear on those things and then identifying where you might have sexual shame in your life, right? And again, all of us have it. We've grown up in whatever culture we've grown up in,
right.
But particularly for in this American culture that I'm in, there's so much shame. And it comes from so many different places, from religion, from specific family upbringings, from, politics, from cops. I mean, there's so many different places in which we are told that sex is wrong or wanting sex is wrong. And getting really clear on what those are for you in your individual constellation of shame, so you can start to undo those lessons. Because a lot of times what will happen is, and a lot of the worst sexual experiences some people have are based on a partner coming at us with their shame and putting their shame on us. Again, as a woman, I've been slut shamed so many times by people that I thought would know better, but it's clearly their own narratives. So the best thing you can do kind of as you pursue having sex in a casual way is noticing when you are using scripts that aren't actually based on expansion and excitement, but rather shame and, discouragement, and to undo those narratives so that you can kind of approach partners with an open mind and an open heart.
Mm-hmm. And then when other people are, you've done the audit on yourself and you're feeling good about how you're going to be a slut, you're feeling positive about it. So how do you make sure you're communicating with a partner where they don't think you're in more of a serious thing than you actually are?
Well, I mean, I just say lead with all of the scary stuff. And ultimately, that's the hardest part for some people because it means you're going to have a lot of doors closed in your face, right? For me, as a queer woman, I partnered with a cisgender man, and I was in an open relationship. We're still in an open relationship, but I was still, going to lesbian bars and meeting women. And this was the thing that they deserve to know, right? Because if somebody's looking for their wife, I'm not that person. Right. So even when we were just flirting at the bar, I would be oh yeah, so I'm partnered, we're non-monogamous, but that's just my deal. And I got a lot of people be whoa, that's not what I'm into. I'm great. Have a wonderful night. Good luck out there. But the people who are oh yeah, that's cool, or that's great, that's ideal, those are the people that you want to keep around. So leading with the scary stuff, leading with all of the stuff that you are and you need, it's gonna feel antithetical, but it's actually the best way of attracting the people who are into what you're about and who are into what you're into, that aren't scared of those things. Because if you end up kind of, again, lying essentially to get into bed with somebody, then ultimately where do you go from there, right? You're building a relationship now based on lies or omission. And that's not an ethical way to run one's sex life. And just the way we talk about when you're negotiating sex, you're what are you into? It's the same stuff around relationships. What are you into? I'm just I broke up with somebody, I'm just looking to get laid, to just get over my ex. Great. That's information that the other person can use, just we would say oh, I'm really kinky. I'm subby and I like to be called these words during sex, right? Those are the same kind of conversation, just the stuff that you're about, what you want and what you're looking for. And even if it means that your partner, the person that you're flirting with is I'm not interested in that, they might have a friend who is, right?
Yes,
and you by leading with this. Yeah, exactly. And again, getting laid by referral is the coolest. I've done it before. I recommend it. Right? Because now they know who you are and what you're about. And it makes it a lot easier for everybody to navigate dating and sex when everyone's clearly labeled,
So I'm in a mostly monogamous thing. I met my partner on Tinder several years ago now. But when I was dating on Tinder, which is supposedly a hookup app, I would try to have casual sex with people and they would seem scared or that was not, they were freaked out about it. Anyway, and I just thought it was so funny because I was isn't this the stereotype about Tinder? So I guess where would you tell people apps wise where to look? Obviously, sex parties and stuff, you're in a territory where people are more of an open mind, but what about online?
Well, yeah, I would say the first thing to do, I would definitely leverage your communities, right? And so even in smaller cities or in less populated areas in general, there's often a munch, which is a kinky meetup. And those are actually really safe places to meet people in a non-sexual environment. Munches will happen at a Denny's, right? There's no sex happening there. It's just an opportunity to meet other people. And again, this is where the being clearly labeled thing is really helpful. I was married for 30 years. I'm recently divorced. And now I'm trying to get my freak on. Like that's where you have those conversations with people. So those are something I would recommend looking at. Even if you're not kinky, they're often a way for you to get inside other sex positive and sexually open communities. But online, there are a lot of apps that aren't Tinder, right? So obviously they're the grinders of the world that are for men seeking men. I use Field, which is an app that's really designed for non-traditional orientations. And again, everybody's going to have different good luck and bad luck with their apps, right? Like none of these are panaceas and none of these will guarantee to get you the kind of laid you want to get. But they're just tools, and those tools tend to attract different people. So yes, Tinder used to be a hookup app. It is no longer a hookup app. Her is an app for women looking for women, and there are some people who are looking for monogamous relationships. There are some people who are like, I think I might be gay and I just want friends, you know? There's everybody. And yeah, Field is, you know, like you can be a couple looking for a unicorn, and that's not discouraged. So if you're looking to just have casual sex with couples, like that might be the place you want to check out. I know I haven't used Open, but I've heard Open is one as well. There are different apps that are designed for different purposes. So I'd say like, yeah, poke around and see what you're looking for. But I'd say, again, lead with the stuff where you're like, listen, I'm just looking to get laid, or I'm just looking to practice flogging, or I'm just looking to like get eaten out and like nothing else. You can lead with all that stuff on a lot of different apps. And that, again, will help weed out the people who are not interested in that and hopefully attract the people who are like, yes, you're my person.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, I'd set my profile for a while to be for both, you know, seeking whoever. And then when I was talking to people about it, lesbians were like, oh, that's the worst. We hate when there are just girls on there to experiment. So, like, I don't know. How do you put yourself out there to try something new without disrupting a space, like, without being a tourist?
Yeah, I totally get that. And at the same time, I think that like you saying, like, I'm new to being with women, but I want to explore is a completely valid thing to do.
Yeah.
And for me, on my profile, I'm like not interested in being anyone's first time because I'm not anymore.
Yes.
So it's like, and that's like, then you would look at mine and be like, oh, she's probably cute, but I'm going to swipe left anyway. Right. Like that's fine. And like, and I think so like everybody should get practiced in like not only what you're looking for, like whatever you're projecting, but also what you want to invite, right? And so for me, I'm like, I don't like dominant men. I'm not interested in fucking men who want to be my daddy. It's not my thing. So I just say right at the top, like, not interested in dominant men. If you come at me dominant, you're gonna get, you know, blocked, right? It's just, but like, again, it helps understand people's reading comprehension. Are you actually looking at my profile? Are you just swiping on my pictures? And then also, again, like it gives you a lot more information going into the scene so that you can be like, listen, like, what are you actually about? We've already established all these bullet points. So yeah, I think that's the whole point of these apps. You're going to see a lot of people who you're not interested in. And that's why you have the ability to swipe no, right? But yeah, just lead with everything and see who filters through.
I love that. Any final thoughts on casual sex before we wrap?
Oh, I mean, I think that, again, this is a beautiful, brave new world in which our culture is definitely more accepting of different relationship orientations. I think heterosexuality and monogamy are perfectly valid choices as long as you're perfectly aware that they are choices. And you have the right to choose monogamy, but you also have the right to choose away from monogamy. And that is something that is a huge privilege, that is a newer thing in our society. And I intend to use that privilege to the greatest of my degrees. So yeah, just acknowledge that like whatever you're interested in, you're going to find people who are interested in that too. And that it comes from both sexual orientation, but also relationship orientation. Like you have choice. So, you know, we use those choices.
Happy exploring. Happy exploring indeed, privates. I hope you enjoyed this episode and got some great takeaways that you can implement as you finish out this summer. High five, high five, high five. Thank you so much to Allison for sharing your casual sex tips with us today. And if you haven't listened to part 1 of this conversation, go back to episode 113 from April of this year. It is called Fingering, Fisting, and Cunnilingus Tips for Pleasing Vulva Owners. with Girl Sex 101 author Allison Moon. And thank you for tuning into this episode of Private Parts Unknown. Stay tuned right here. It is Hot Pod Summer, so I have got another sexy episode coming your way next week. And for the latest episodes, look down and make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast player now. It's usually a bell button or a subscribe or a follow button. And to stay in touch between episodes, follow me at Courtney Kocak. That is Kocak on Instagram and Twitter. And follow the show at Private Parts Unknown on Instagram and at Private Parts Un on Twitter. And privates, I am shamelessly trying to hit the top 1% on OnlyFans by my 3-year anniversary in August. Just a few weeks away. So if you are interested in a Playboy style peek behind the podcast, you can subscribe to my OnlyFans account. It is just onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. Again, onlyfans.com/CocoPeepShow. And subscribe to our newsletter at privatepartsunknown.substack.com, or just click on the link in the episode description. And the Private Parts Unknown YouTube channel is poppin', baby. There are new videos up daily, videos with Gigi Angle, Amanda McNeil, and the Multi-Amory crew, and now Allison Moon as well. So make sure you check it out. It's youtube.com/privatepartsunknown. Again, youtube.com/privatepartsunknown. And make sure you subscribe. Even if you're not planning on watching over there, you just like the podcast, it really helps us out in the algorithm if you subscribe. And shout out to Amy Rausch for the bomb-ass theme music. For more info about Amy and her music, check out amyrausch.com. That is Amy, RAASCH.com. This episode was mixed by my Ride or Die audio guy, Michael Castaneda of Plastic Audio. And after enjoying this content, could we ask you for a quick favor? Just go to ratethispodcast.com/private and give us a 5-star rating and review. We have some rating goals for Hot Pod Summer. We are trying to get to 350 ratings on Apple Podcasts and 150 on Spotify by the end of the summer. This helps other people find the show. It makes us feel really good. And it also helps with guest booking. So if you're on Apple Podcasts, just leave a 5-star rating and a sentence or two in a review with what you love about the show. And if you're on Spotify, you just go to the upper left-hand corner of our page. You click the star button and then you click all 5 stars. And no matter where you are listening, you can help us out with this by going to ratethispodcast.com/private. Again, that is ratethispodcast.com/private. And there is a new way you can support the show. We are now on the Fountain app. So if you are listening on a V4V platform and you get value from this show, you can support us by sending a boostagram. And you can even send a comment along with your boost. And I have to say, those are my favorite messages to get because they come with a little bit of money. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring. Love you, privates.